at the sharpening table with my stones in soak and my Benchmade 940. I think this is a 940-2. So it's a black G10 model with those green spacers. This is an awesome knife. You long-time subscribers will remember that it was a gift from my friend Tom. Fantastic gift. Imagine someone would gift you a Benchmade Osborne. Fantastic knife that I've loved so much. However, it's very dull right now, and I haven't sharpened it in a long time, unfortunately, because I've just been so busy I haven't had the stones out. I'm about to sharpen it. Now, I do have a little bit of rough grinding. I just threw it on my belt sander there super quick just to remove a really big dent that I had in the edge. I dropped it edge first in cement just maybe a month ago, and it just kind of cracked straight down, as my luck would have it, bounced off the ground and left a big nick. So I just took that out lightly with the belt sander. I do that if there's a really bad edge, really bad nicks. I've become really handy with the belt sander. Super fine belts, and I can just take off the smallest amount and save some time and wear on my whetstones. For just general sharpening, I could have took the nick out with my whetstones. It just would have took longer. For general sharpening, just your whetstones is plenty. So we're starting off with a 400 grit nanowatt here. You can start higher, you can start lower. Not a big deal. You just need to achieve the certain end result, which is a perfect apex with whatever grit that is. If you're starting with a 2000 grit stone, it's going to take you a long time to get to that perfect apex. If you start at a 220 grit stone, you're going to get there pretty quick. I have a 400. It's about the lowest inequality stone that I have. This is a nanowatt super stone, I believe. So what I'm doing is I'm laying my blade flat on the stone, and I'm tipping it up, and I'm watching the shadow under my edge. So when you lay it like this on the stone, as I tip it up, that shadow, the black shadow on the edge, will disappear when your edge is flat on the stone. And then you just have to hope for the best, try to hold that angle. And with such a long straight edge on this knife, I just kind of focus on the straight edge first. I worry about sharpening that, and then a little later on I'll start making a few rounded strokes like this to take care of the actual nose of the blade. But it's a straight edge that usually requires the most work, and that's what you usually use the most. Now the Benchmade 940, or at least this model, is made with S30V steel, which in my experience is pretty hard, but it sharpens very nicely. It's, I guess at this point S30V is kind of a decent steel. It's not an extreme steel at this point, not compared to some of the newest stuff that has come out there, but it's a very good steel. Very good durability. It doesn't chip too easily, it doesn't dent too easily, holds edge for a long time. It's just a great steel. Now you notice it looks like I'm being pretty free and sloppy with my strokes. Maybe I am, but I've done a lot of sharpening, so I can move quickly and still manage to hold my angle. Okay, so I'm just working away on this stone. Like I said, I'm working that straight edge first, and then I'll get into a few sweeps. The occasional check, just to make sure you're not making your angle too shallow or too steep. Just know that you're not changing the blade geometry, the edge geometry. You don't want to do that unless you have a specific reason that you do. Maybe the factory grind was too delicate for you. Maybe it was not delicate enough. Maybe you're someone that uses your knife pretty much just for peeling apples and cutting a fiber off your clothes like that. Then the factory edge is probably fine, or you could even do with something more thin, more delicate. I find the factory edge on this knife is a little bit steep, to be honest. It's probably made like that so it's very durable, which it is, especially with the S30V and kind of a steep grind. It's very tough. But if you do delicate work, you might want a little bit of a thinner edge. So then you just kind of play around with it, change your angle profile. It's not too big of a deal. We're not doing anything too extreme here. Just gonna have fun with it. Pay attention to what you're doing, and don't ruin your very expensive knife. How do you know when you're done on a single stone? So the rule I always say is when you've created a uniform scratch pattern on one bevel to create a perfect apex. So that is, you have a V edge coming to a point, so you need to make sure that that apex does indeed come to a point, and that this entire surface on each side has a uniform scratch pattern of whatever grit you have here. So you don't want leftover grits from other grinds or previous sharpening sessions. Make sure it's nice and clean. So right now I should have only 400 grit scratches on the edge of my knife. So if you've created that, here's how I finished off on a given stone. So I'll give it a little rinse just to get all the residue off there. All along I've been doing cutting and stropping strokes, so back and forth on each side. What I'll do now is I'll draw my edge of my knife very lightly through a piece of wood. This is a trick I learned from Murray Carter, from Carter Cutlery. And once I do that, the idea of that is to drag any burr off your edge, to get rid of any burr. So that's a wire that's been created. After you've gotten rid of that, I'm going to use only cutting strokes now. Very light cutting strokes, no back and forth, because strapping style strokes, that is strokes pushing away from your edge, tend to create a burr. So I'll just do single strokes into my edge. And that will just help clean up your edge after you've dragged off that burr. It'll just help perfect that apex, make it nice and solid and clean. So not too particular here. I have no number to give you, maybe 5 strokes on each side. Nice and clean and light, keep that angle perfect. And by now, you should have a beautiful feeling edge, an edge, especially on this grit, that's very grabby. So I move my fingers along the edge. I've gotten some nasty things said to me for doing that. People call me stupid and saying I'm an idiot because it's completely unsafe. Listen, if you don't feel safe doing it, don't do it. Just because you're not capable enough has no effect on me. So I just touch that edge ever so slightly, and it should be nice and grabby to my fingertips. It should almost try to cut at a micro level into your skin. Now, if you have little baby hands, little soft baby hands, maybe that's the problem. People with little baby hands that can't hold up to a knife edge. My hands are far too rough and calloused to be cut that easily. So now, whatever we did with the first stone, we're going to do with the second and the third and however many stones you have. So I'm just going to do a complete sharpening. So that is, we're working until we've created a perfect apex, a uniform scratch pattern. Now, unless you spoil your apex, you should already have a perfect apex. So it's just about getting all the 400 grit scratches replaced with 1000 grit scratches here now. Back and forth strokes. Then eventually I'll give my stone a rinse, draw through my piece of wood again to remove any burr, and then a few cutting strokes ever so lightly, just to solidify that edge. So I'll come back when I'm done here. Okay, so my final few strokes after dragging through the wood. Very light strokes, make sure you keep that angle, and only cutting strokes. That's it for that stone. Let's move on. I have a 3000 here, made by Nanawa. I could easily go on to my 6000 if I wanted. You guys might have different grit stones. Maybe you have a 4000, that's fine. Use whatever you have, make do. Exact same steps we did with the last two stones, repeated for this one. And then we'll go to the 6,000, do the exact same thing again. Nothing different, honestly nothing different. So again, I dragged my edge through a piece of softwood, and now some light cutting strokes just to finish off on my 6,000. And I think I'm going to call it quits right there. Check and make sure we have all 6,000 grit strokes right to our edge, and we do. Now we're going to move over to a little bit of stropping. I'm going to start off here with my unfinished, or my suede saugud strap. This is just a paddle strap I made up myself. Just a piece of rough leather with some compound on it, just some polishing compound. You can buy polishing compound at lots of hardware stores, or you can get it from a sharpening shop, a lot of knife stores and stuff. I know in Canada, and I think the US has Fenrahan, which is a straight razor place. Of course, they carry all specialized sharpening gear, which includes various types of polishing compound. But any type of compound, and I don't do anything specific with stropping. Stropping is strokes pulling away from your edge, okay? So no cutting strokes, of course, because you're cutting to the leather. But I'll just do so many straps, doubles, singles, 10 on one side, 10 on the other. Not a big deal. I'll wipe off a little bit of compound. Then I'll move over to my finished sided strap, which is just a smooth leather. Sort of a polished leather. It's an old guitar strap. It's getting a little bit rough now. I soon need a new one. But I'm going to use that to finish up a few strokes. So let's give our edge a little test. Just going to do enough just to see that it's shaving sharp. And of course it is. Okay, very shaving sharp. This thing is viciously sharp right now. Beautiful edge. This is a beautiful knife. Look at that. My initials. How sweet of a gift is that? Hope this video helped you out. Hope you learned a little something. If you have an Osborne or you're thinking about getting one, highly recommend it. And if you're wondering how to sharpen it, I would follow the steps that I just did if you have whetstones. You can never go wrong with whetstones. Please hit the like button. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me if this video helped you. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And please share this video. Share it to your Facebook, share it to Instagram, share it on Google+, just whatever. If you could share it, I would be so grateful, just to help get my content out there a little bit more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.